Hey everyone, so this is Rosewood, Season 2, Episode 2, and it's called Secrets and Silent Killers. So basically, there's this guy who we later find out is named Danny Williams, who is in a strip club, and he was leaving his friends after, having a good time and everything, because his wife is at home. He wants to tell him it's his wife. Excuse me. So Rosie and Via are, seen, talking together in our home about Eddie's case, and Rosie finds out that Eddie was badly beaten 3 months before he was killed. But Via says she would have noticed if he come home beaten up one day. But then Via, looks at the date and remembers that on that date, she had met Eddie at the ER, and he had told her that he was in a car accident, which I guess is true. I mean, he could have, because later on he said they think that he intentionally, got into a car accident so that he could claim that that's the reason for his injuries and everything. So, which to me kind of makes sense. Anyway, so and it's pretty much clear that, Eddie lied to her about, getting beat up. And she's kind of not really believing it, but Rosie's like, you know what? Look, there's bite marks on his arm that clearly cannot be from a car. So she's gonna have to start slowly but surely, accept this. And that's when Slade calls and tells her that he needs her. Um, on the way over there, Via says that she's or she doesn't really say it, but she's pretty much mad that Eddie, lied about getting beat up. When Rosie asks, like, what's wrong with her, and notes that she's looking upset. At the crime scene, though, they find out the victim's name is Danny Williams, and Via notices that the guy is wearing glittering and that, he has a wife that will obviously not have him come home every day anymore. And Rosie later concludes that Williams was a recovering drug addict. Hornstock says that the guy was likely OD'd, but the crime scene doesn't really make sense because it seems sloppy. And Via chimes in saying that the previous track marks are in well-hidden areas. So it doesn't make sense to suddenly shoot up in his arm. And Rosie said it's because he didn't do it himself. Someone had done it for him. Because the reason he says this is because Williams is a left-handed person, and people who use their dominant hand for most things, if not everything. So if they're gonna, take drugs, if they're a right-handed person, they're gonna shoot it up into their left arm. If they're a left-handed person, they're gonna shoot up in the right arm. So since Danny was a left-handed person, he's gonna shoot up in his right arm if he's ever gonna do that. And since he didn't, Rosie concludes that he was murdered. Via then tells Slade that someone had to have known about his addiction, so Via wants help from Hornstock, but Slade makes Hornstock do paperwork. Back at the lab, TMI says that there was heroin in a syringe, so she wants to find out the toxicology on Danny's blood, since Pippi isn't there anymore, and Rosie lets her. Mitchie is concerned about Williams because Williams appears to have had a manicure, even though he's a guy who works in construction, so basically works with his hands. A little bit later, we see Donna visiting Gerald in prison. He explains he has a new lawyer, and he's grateful about her giving it to him, but he fears this whole thing about, finding out, what really happened with him is taking a toll on her. Donna dismisses that and says she wants to see the photos of the victim at the crime scene, but she needs him to okay it with his lawyer, so his lawyer can give it to her. He refuses to do that. But she says Rosie is the best pathologist around. But he's like, well, if he's so good, why haven't you told him about me yet? And she says it's complicated, because the letter he sent to Rosie wasn't about clearing his name, but to get closure for the victims. But he insists that she go back to her life. And then it goes to Via and Rosie talking to the wife, and she's not believing that he's dead at first, and Via asks her if her husband's drug use was public knowledge, and she claims that he never did drugs. Via's like, you know what, girl, you need to get your head out of the sand, because as much as you want to deny it, it's the truth. You're not the first woman to find out her husband had some secrets. So she says that he was at a strip club, so they later go to where he was and come across this guy named Luke that Rosie apparently knows. Luke says he remembers standing with a couple of friends who were having this bachelor party there, and basically Danny wasn't partying as hard as his friends, meaning that yes, Danny was drinking, but he wasn't doing the drugs that Luke saw on the table. And around the time that Luke asked his friends to get rid of the drugs, that's when Danny left. But before Danny left, Luke saw him arguing with this guy by the bathrooms. So Via asks for the security cameras in the place, or the footage from the security cameras, so that they could, figure out who the guy was. Back at the lab, everyone is, doing their thing in regards to the body, and Tima is pounding on the keyboard. And so Mitchie and Rosie ask if Tima is fine, since she's, kind of hitting the keys on the keyboard pretty damn hard. She says she's fine, but before they can, kind of delve deeper into why she's doing that, Via comes down and says that there's a problem. That the print on the syringe belonged to Connor Thorne, but Connor Thorne is the victim laying on the table, meaning Danny lied about his name. His real name is Connor Thorne, and Connor's death certificate was issued 3 years prior in DC. So Rosie thinks he faked his death, and whatever he was running from caught up with him. Back at the station, Hornstock reveals Danny was a hedge fund manager back in DC who had a weakness for cars, women, and drugs. Danny had done a Ponzi scheme to support his lifestyle, and when the feds and SEC were closing in, he had walked into the ocean at Virginia Beach in front of witnesses to fake a suicide. He got a lot of death threats before his suicide, so they think the many people who made some of those threats could have done it. Via then says that there's almost $2.5 million unaccounted for when he had faked his death. And Rosie says that that's the missing $2.5 million is what doesn't add up to him, because the guy on the table appeared to have been living a very simple life. So where did all the money go? Via and Rosie go back to talk to the wife. But before that, Slade forces Hornstock to go through all the victims' files of William's Ponzi scheme. And I'm just sitting here thinking, in the first 5 minutes of last week's episode, I was fine with Slade. I was fine. And then all of a sudden he became a jackass. And so I'm just excuse me, I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't last the entire season at all. Anyway, so Tima then calls Pippi for help, but doesn't get Pippi on the phone to talk to her. So she leaves a voicemail asking about how to test the blood sample, and reveals that Danny was already, And Donna overhears TMI in this voicemail, and tells TMI to let Pippi have some time. And TMI is like, you know what, Donna, look in the mirror yourself, because, I mean, you're avoiding Rosie, and not telling him when you need to tell him, because this is, I mean, come on now. Donna says, I'm busy, and I'm like, that's lies. That's a bunch of lies. Come on now, stop. So, anyway, Donna then goes downstairs to ask Mitchie for a favor and to not tell Rosie about it. Eventually, you're gonna have to tell Rosie and Pippi what's going on, because you can't keep this a secret much longer. Sooner or later, someone's gonna come snooping around asking about why Donna is, invested in Joe's case, and he's eventually gonna figure it out. So Pippi then calls back and asks about blood sample she tested, or TMI tested, and reveals that Danny was already dead when he was injected in his left arm, so there's no way for the blood to circulate in the system. TMI says that there's no other signs of cause of death. Pippi says the blood doesn't lie, and she's never wrong before hanging up. Danny's wife doesn't believe he lied about his name, but Via says he feels that they are telling the truth. They show her a picture of the man Danny was fighting with at the club, and his name is Troy Randolph, who lives across the street. So they go across the street and find in Troy's desk photos of Danny from a distance. They bring Troy in, and he claims he wasn't stalking Danny. He was just trying to get experience as a PI, because he wants to start his own business and everything. Then he says Danny didn't deserve Jenny because she would cry at night when he left, and Troy got proof he was sleeping with someone else outside his marriage, and he has the pictures to prove it. So later TMI is doing the procedure on the victim, and he comes down and says Donna he couldn't say no to her and everything, and it's driving him crazy, the favor she's asking him to do. And then, let's see, TMI reveals that, she knows about Gerald. Yes, how she knew and how long, and he wants to tell Rosie, and Rosie comes in a second later with all the stuff from Danny's car. And then, let's see, Rosie gets a call from Via. He tells him Danny had a mistress who he would meet every Tuesday at a cafe at 7:45 p.m. Via doesn't know her name, but has an idea where to find her, so they find her at a local NA meeting. So Via goes up to her and pretends to be there for the meeting, and she suggests Danny and her were romantically involved, but she denies it. So Via tells her she knows they were romantically involved, but it turns out the woman only planned to kiss on him after misinterpreting his actions. Via goes home and goes through Eddie's things and finds money and a camera in the bottom of one of Eddie's suitcases. She goes to Rosie's house, shows him the suitcase with the money and camera, and starts drinking Rosie's vodka, I think. And she's basically said she's fed up with Eddie and his lies. The next morning, Donna comes over, sees Via at Rosie's house, and asks what's wrong. Tells her everything, points to Eddie being involved with something criminal, and Donna tells her that she doesn't know where the money came from or how he was going to use it, so Via needs to, stop jumping to conclusions and everything. Via then gets an epiphany that Danny was using the money he stole to help out the people in his NA meetings, and she leaves. Rosie comes out a second later and sees Donna there. Donna asks why he had not exhumed Eddie's body yet, and he says he doesn't want to overstep his bounds again, and Donna doesn't tell Rosie about Gerald, the fucking chicken. Like, chicken. Come on, girl, you're a chicken. Really? Anyway, so Rosie calls Pippi and asks about Donna, thinking it has something to do with Gerald. Pippi says she will talk with Donna, and this all goes on as, Rosie, drives somewhere, I guess to the department or whatever. Via then tells Slade that Danny had a secret bank account where he stashed all the money he stole, that he used the money on his friends, not himself. There was a large money transfer to Troy's bank account. Slade thinks Troy found out who Danny really was, and was blackmailing him, and Via says he must have forgotten to tell them. So Slade decides he will go question Troy. Via and Hornstock take a walk while Slade goes to do this, and Hornstock reveals that he went to the wrong house to be with the guy who he thought was abusing, or who he figured was abusing his kid by flipping the numbers due to his dyslexia, and his boss at the time covered it up. Hornstock then, believes Slade is trying to make him quit by sticking him with paperwork since Slade doesn't have a reason to fire him, and it seems to be working. Via then tells him to take one letter and number at a time and to not quit. Rosie then says he found a white substance on his clothes, on Danny's clothes. So it turns out to be cuticle shavings of the nail, basically. So it wasn't a manicure, because Danny must have scratched the person who killed him, and so the killer just, shaved filed down the nail. But the killer didn't clean up the nail residue, and Rosie found high-density polyethylene in 2 sets of DNA. Pippi comes in and saying she knows where the polyethylene came from. It was from a bag the killer filled with nitrogen and put over Danny's head. Then it goes back to Slade, questioning Troy about him knowing Danny's true identity. He didn't want to say anything because if he did, he would get 15 years for either blackmail or extortion, or maybe it's the one and the same thing. I don't know. Anyway, so that's when Via figures out who killed Danny. Via then brings in Jenny and has her roll up her sleeves, but she only does one before Via says, "You know what? Roll the other one, please." So she does, and Via tells the story of this girl named Penny, who found out her husband was not who he said he was by the neighbor. And so when the woman figured out her husband wasn't who he said he was, she killed him. But Hornstock comes in and says that's not why she did it. Jenny's stepfather was one of Danny's Ponzi scheme victims, and Jenny's stepfather had committed suicide. But the reason she didn't kill Danny right away is because she wanted to know where the money was first. And back at the lab, Tima and Mitchie talked to Donna about her telling Rosie and Pippi the truth. Donna says she would consider it, but Tima says either Donna tells them or she will when Rosie comes up behind them asking, "Tell me what?" So Tima and Mitchie leave, and so presumably Donna tells Rosie the truth. Via then visits Slade and confronts him about his behavior. So he says he understands Hornstock doing what he did, meaning beating up the guy, wanting to go over to the correct house and beating up the guy. That's not what he has a problem with. The problem Slade has is Hornstock going to IAD 20 years later to turn himself in. He doesn't understand, if you're gonna go through all the trouble of beating up someone and then 20 years later, or if you're gonna go through all the trouble of beating him up and then turning yourself in, why do it 20 years later? Why not just go after you've done it? I mean, what's the point then of waiting? So Via's like, Hornstock is exactly who he needs on the team. Before she leaves, Via then calls Rosie and says she needs to get to the bottom of who killed Eddie, and Rosie reveals that he had Eddie's body exhumed before he hangs up and meets with Gerald a second later to ask how a serial killer who killed 2 young women can befriend and convince his mother to put it all on the line for him. So he's basically then wanting to know how Gerald managed to get his mother to how Gerald had gotten his mother to do this. So that's the end of the episode. Next time on Rosewood, the episode's called Eddie in the Empire State of Mind. So basically Rosie and Via go to New York to investigate Eddie's murder, which I still don't think is going to be resolved until at the earliest around the winter break, whether it's we find out when they come back from winter break or before winter break or what. So I'm thinking that we're not gonna find out until at least then, if not the season finale. So I have this feeling that we're gonna find out who killed Eddie and everything around then. Um, or that it's gonna be a season long thing. It's not gonna be like I don't think we're gonna find out who killed him by next episode. I really don't think so. I think they're gonna get a lead, but I just don't think they're gonna figure out who killed Eddie and bring him to justice. I don't think that's gonna happen by next episode. So that's kind of my prediction. As far as Gerald goes, I think Donna's gonna end up getting her heart broken and find out that Gerald actually did kill those women, and she's gonna feel all sorts of guilt because of it, for being so blind to it, because she started falling for the guy. So I'm thinking that's what's gonna happen. I'm thinking she's gonna, get this information and everything about Gerald, and he's gonna feel like a total idiot or something. She's just gonna feel guilty for not for being blind to it. So that's what I think. Those are my predictions. As far as that goes, as far as next episode and overall season predictions, trying to think about Pippi and TMI. I think eventually maybe they might actually get back together, but they're not gonna be engaged. They're gonna take it one day at a time, and but they're eventually gonna get back, eventually be engaged again. So I think that's what's gonna happen. They're not gonna get back together right away, but they're going to definitely get back together. So that's why I think that they're gonna get back together, but not as fiancés. So, but by when, I don't know. That's still up in the air, in my opinion. That could honestly be like a season long thing as well. We'll see. And that's all I have to say about this episode. Hit like if you like this episode. Hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and don't hesitate to comment down below in the comment box below about this episode, previous episodes, and future episodes. So, and I'll see you guys next week in in Rosewood. Bye.